She is now Ellen DeGeneres.
Good evening and welcome to the Ellen DeGeneres Show. I'm Ellen DeGeneres and you're here on my show. Tonight I will be joined by one of my famous horror directors over Skype, Mr. James Wan. Unfortunately, Mr. James Wan can't be here tonight, which is why I just told you. He will be joining us over Skype. He unfortunately fell last week and broke his leg and is therefore now on crutches. So, make a big nice welcome for your famous director and favorite director, Mr. James Wan!
Hi everyone!
Good evening, James. How are you? How's your leg?
I'm great, thanks. I'm feeling much better.
Yeah?
I'd just like to apologise that I can't be there tonight, but thank you very much for having me.
It's okay. I will be inviting you back into my studio once you feel better. And once you're done producing your film, which I've heard is going to be a great success. It's coming out in June, isn't it?
Yeah, June the 21st.
Oh, that sounds very great. I'm already looking forward to going into it. I'm, of course, invited to the premiere, aren't I?
Of course you are, Ellen.
Sounds great. Okay, well, James, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some questions.
No, that's no problem. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I'm going to start out with this. Tell me a bit about what your movie is about. I mean, yeah.
So, our new film is a slasher film. So, it's a bit scary, but it's about a girl who is kind of terrorized and, like, I'm not going to give too much of the plot away, but she's kind of stalked by this villain who wears a mask. So, yeah, that's about it. That's all I can give away.
That sounds a bit like Leatherface from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, basically we were very inspired by a lot of different horror films. Friday the 13th, Halloween, and the idea of the mask did come from the Leatherface character, and we just wanted to kind of, you know, like, represent those classical great horror or slasher movies in our own film by having a mask, so that's why we chose it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Those are quite a few conventions that you're talking about, but I mean, did you also apply any of the other media theories I've heard about? I mean, there's so many that I've heard about, such as props, character archetypes, or Todorov's narrative formula. I mean, there's so many. Did you apply some of these?
You're right about them being a lot of theories, and we really wanted to include these. So there's a theory about sort of the different stages of equilibrium. It's a theory by Todorov, and it's sort of this theory that, you know, it starts where everything's fine, there's equilibrium, and then it goes through different stages such as disruption, and then at the end there's obviously always a conclusion. And, you know, within like the first 5 minutes of our film, we already have the equilibrium at the start, and then we have a disruption very early on, which I think is what makes our films very exciting. There's a lot of action very early on, and it's very exciting.
While you're filming, you're talking about this now, you also broke your leg. I mean, have you had any problems while filming? And if so, I mean, what were the problems that you've had?
One of the main problems, and one of the problems I'm going to talk about, is filming at night time. If you haven't ever made a film or tried to film at night, you won't realise how difficult it is, because for horror films, you know, the conventions of horror are quite clear, and the fact that it would be nighttime it would really add suspense and everything. So that's one of the things we wanted to include. We wanted to include quite a lot of scenes during the night or in the late evening.
Yeah.
During filming, however, we realised how difficult this was, because, you know, once it gets dark, the camera quality goes down, you know, and we wanted to make sure everything looked really good. So we kind of overcame this by filming near street lamps.
Yeah.
So when you watch our film, you'll be able to notice that in one of the scenes, it's the characters walking past street lamps, and we actually did this so that we'd have enough light to film with. Yeah, so that was just probably one of the main problems we had, and
Yeah.
something you really have to take into consideration when filming a film is what time you're filming it. But obviously, the fact that it was at night just gives a really, really good effect afterwards, and a really scary effect, and it goes back to the classical horror conventions. So yeah, it wasn't too much of a problem, to be honest, in the end.
That sounds very good. You're starting to mention streetlights and so on, and now that actually leads me to my next question. Where have you filmed all of this? I mean, where is the location for that? Because all of a sudden I heard something about James Wan is going to Luxembourg, and I just thought, when is he going to be able to come to my show if he's leaving for Luxembourg? So where did you go in the end?
Well, one of the reasons is obviously because I know some people over there who could help us with the filming, and it's also it's kind of this, it's not a very well-known country, and not that many people will have been there, so we just thought it would add a sort of mysterious effect, because they're not very well recognised, the areas that we were filming in. So yeah, we did film near the centre of the country. We filmed in the streets, and we actually went round and we found this amazing church which was there, and there is a couple of films in the church, so we just really liked the area, and yeah, when choosing the location, we looked at films such as Halloween, and if you haven't seen it, basically the main character lives in a sort of suburban area with lots of houses, but it's quite empty, so there aren't too many cars driving around, and we just thought when watching the film Halloween, the location really added something extra. It really added like a sense of suspense and everything. So we wanted to film, by some houses where there weren't too many people. So yeah, that's basically why we chose it.
Isn't that movie by John Carpenter?
Yeah, that's the one. It's. I really recommend that the audience go watch that. You might notice some links between that and our film.
Great, as long as with the Friday 13th one as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, James, you're still quite new in this film business. You haven't produced so many movies yet. So, if I may ask, I mean, what production skills have you learned throughout this whole process? I mean, what have you learned? I mean, from A to Z. Tell me.
That's actually a really good question. So thanks for whoever asked that. The main things that I kind of took away from filming this whole film and the whole process was actually, firstly, I learned a lot more about the horror and specifically the slasher genre, because our film is a slasher film.
Yeah.
I did so much research, as I said, like in two films such as Friday the 13th and Halloween, that I learned a lot more about the genre, and when we were researching like different things about like characters in horror, I learned like a lot about the way that women are portrayed in horror, and the way men are portrayed, and different like things like that. I learned so much about these genres, and I found that really interesting. What else did I learn? I learned about sort of a lot more about filming. I learned more about using different equipment, and yeah, also editing, because I worked on the editing as well, a little bit, just kind of, so I did learn a lot of new skills, a lot of ways that, like, different ways to kind of film things, and also new editing software that I worked with. I learned a lot about that, so it was a really great experience, and I've taken a lot away from it, so that's really great.
Great. It sounds very interesting. I mean, you talk so much about it. I'm actually quite fascinated by it. As you've probably heard, some of you, I am at the moment currently trying to step into the media role myself, and therefore I actually want to ask you, James, whether are there any specific tips you could give a filmmaker like me for starting out?
This is great. I'm really excited about you getting into the film industry, by the way.
Thank you.
So
Maybe we can produce a film together.
yeah, who knows? So when creating a film, some advice. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is the importance of audience. So very very early on, what you need to decide is who your audience is. So what gender they are, what age they are, how you're going to make them be able to relate to your film, and how they can engage in your film.
Yeah.
Like how you're going to portray different ethnicities and everything. And that's something we decided very very early on. And I think you need to do a lot of research. We did loads and loads of that, based around the audience, the target audience, I should say. Also, like, do as many viewings of sort of parts of your film. So what we did was we showed our film, like clips of our film, to students when we were in the early stages. Test shoots, and we got feedback on that from people who were sort of our target audience. And that feedback was so important, because then we could see what their preferences were and everything, and really listen to what they had to say.
Right.
We did a lot of things like questionnaires that we handed out to our target audience, so we could decide how to suit our film to their needs and everything. So yeah, that's basically the most important piece of advice I could give.
Oh,
I think.
Was your target audience between 15 and, like, I don't know, 35, 25?
Yeah, it was. It's 15 to 25, but then on top of that, the secondary is like 26 to 35. So if you're anywhere between 15 and 35, you will enjoy this film if you like horror. Obviously, I mean that's the kind of age we were going for. The age range, yeah. Okay, so as you said, you're starting to get into the film industry and everything.
I am actually. I mean, as you might know, if you watch my show quite often, I invite kids into my studio because I often see so many talented kids. And then this year, at the beginning of the year, I had this group of 3 called Jonathan, Bronwen, and Sophie. And I mean, they came into my studio because I invited them to. It was generally to talk about school, and they'd been elected for that. And I mean, they do a media coursework, and they were telling me about their production, which sounds actually a bit like it's similar to yours. And I was just really into it. I mean, I immediately wanted to take part in it. So so I kept in touch with them, and they actually ended up asking me questions, and I helped them, and they got some help from me. So yeah, I helped them on the sideline.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, but would it be okay if I could ask you a few questions about your film that you're going to be producing?
Now I'm excited. Sure.
Okay, so I actually prepared some questions for you.
Oh, great.
Just to expand on what you were saying before a bit more, what filming experience did you have before kind of starting the film that you're doing at the moment?
I mean, before doing this film, which I'm working on at the moment with the 3 students, like I said, I didn't have that much experience. However, I did create some short films on using the iMovie program. Sorry, the iMovie software on my MacBook. So I did use that, and also, I mean, I did use camera. So I've filmed before, and I filmed, like, created trailers for fun just in my free time after I've been on a vacation with my family or something. So yeah, I mean, I've had a bit of experience. Yeah, I can definitely say that.
That's great. So could you talk a bit about the equipment you used and what kind of equipment you use, like cameras and stuff? And did you learn anything about these, like your cameras? Did you learn anything more, and kind of had you used this equipment before you started filming?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've gotten to know used quite a lot of new equipment throughout this whole process. I mean, for example, for filming, we used a camera called the Sony A58, and I mean that was just really good, filmed in a very good quality. We had it on autofocus, but that was because so we could make sure that everything was correct the whole time. And I mean, it was really useful to use this. And before, as I said, I'd used the Canon to do some filming before, so I knew a bit about how it would work and how to use it, and yeah, so on. Besides the camera, we also used like tripod, which was called Montana Scout, I think. But it was very useful because I mean it's there so you have steady footage and not shaky footage all the time. So it was definitely very useful. Furthermore, I mean we've used the editing software Final Cut Pro X. So I mean that's definitely new technology I've gotten to know throughout this whole process. I've learned a lot on how to use its basic tools such as like Blade and Zoom and so on, but I've also used like more advanced tools such as special effects and crop and so on, and how to do that. So yeah, I mean, I've gotten quite a lot of new technologies, and it's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it. So yeah.
Okay. Um, so my next question is just going to be a bit about the pre-production of your film. So what did you do to prepare for filming? Like, for example, did you create a storyboard, and if so, did you do it yourself, or did you get someone else to do it? Just tell me a bit about that whole process of the pre-production.
There were actually quite a lot of steps in the pre-production. There was storyboards, call sheets, screenplays. I mean, there were so many different stuff. Let's start out with the storyboard, for example. As you know, a storyboard is where you frame the different shots approximately into frames, and you write which shots you're going to use and from which angle and so on. And basically, there was this one girl called Bronwen in the group, who is a very creative student who takes art as her main subject, so for her A level as well. So obviously, she was the one to create the storyboard. She did this incredibly well. I was very impressed by it. So yeah, we created storyboards. Also, I found out that their idea before I came into the picture, it had changed already 3 times. So they first had to do an individual pitch where they presented their idea. Then they went into the group, and then they had to do a group pitch first, and then they ended up changing their whole idea to what it is now. Which was then group pitch 2, which is where I came into the picture and where I found out about this group of students, which I then invited to my studio. And after group pitch 2, they also started creating call sheets. So I mean, they had storyboard for individual pitch, group pitch 1, and group pitch 2. So Bronwen already had to create 3 of those. And then we had the call sheets where we wrote down which shots we wanted to use, where the location would be, which dialogue would be in there, what we wanted the specific character to do. And yeah, then we also had screenplays, which I actually created because I took a class once where they also taught me how to write a screenplay.
Yeah.
So one of the boys from the group, Jonathan, he actually came up to me and he asked me, Ellen, could you please do our screenplay? So I decided to do a screenplay, and it ended up quite well because I'd taken that course.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looked good.
That's
And
good.
all of these, they were helping us to prepare for filming. I mean, also during the pre-production, we created the mask for Leatherface, like we were talking about before, because we also have a character called Leatherface. I mean, our story is actually quite similar to yours, so there's not a big difference. I think, yeah. So there was a lot in the pre-production. But I mean, if you have any questions or want to see any more, you can just go um, to their blogs, because they had to create blogs on Blogspot. So they used Blogger for that. So yeah, I can give you the links for that. I can send them to you after the show.
That would be great. Yeah,
Okay,
I'd love to see
that.
that.
We'll do that.
Yeah. Okay, so
oh, you have another
my
question.
Sorry?
You have another question. Well, I think we lost the signal a bit there.
Just
Okay,
really
go.
quickly,
Yeah, go.
could you just answer, like, this is my last question, I promise. Just quickly, did you test your ideas out with an audience? Because, you know, I spoke about the importance of audience, but did you test out, like, did you show anyone your ideas first?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely tested our ideas first on the audience. I mean, we got a lot of audience feedback. Like you said, with the creating questionnaires, our questionnaire, for example, was asking our audience what they thought of our basic idea, what they would suggest that we changed, and so on. We, for example, also asked them if they had any suggestion for the working title, since we didn't really have an idea yet. So there were a lot of stuff that came up there, although our final working title is not on that list. Also, we did test screenings, or I mean, the students did a test screening in their class. I was once there where they then showed it to year 10s and then also year 13s from their school. The year 10s, for example, they suggested that they should change the music and work more with tension, and they really thought the music played an important deal. Whereas the year 13s, they looked more at the shot variety we'd used rather than the music. So they said to us, for example, before the non-diegetic soundtrack had been added, they already said that they thought it was amazing how there had already been build-up tension, despite the fact that there wasn't any music on there yet. Which is already quite a good sign for a horror movie, because if you can already create tension, even without adding the music, that's already quite good. So yeah, I mean, like you said, test screenings, questionnaires, all those sorts of things. So yeah, we definitely, I mean, all the time we got feedback from our audience, which definitely also, it has helped. I think it helped to shape the movie in the end. I mean, it shapes it into what the target audience actually wants. And I mean, that's just the most important thing, because if our target audience already doesn't like it, then who is going to? So I mean, you definitely also in that early stage also already have to think about distribution, your target audience, and that's what these students did. It was impressive. I mean, they really did a good job, so I hope they get a good grade for it.